and welcome to the digital afterlife of grief. I am Ginger Lou, and we're at the end of the year. It's gone quickly, especially chatbots and therapy bots have really been in the news this year with regards to lots of non-profits, charities, government health like NHS using chatbots, and lots of kind of research into it as well. So but we were definitely a year on to last year where there was practically, zero research. Now there's a lot more to do with this kind of death technology and grief technology. So it's been an interesting year to say the least. So I've been specifically writing a lot about AI chatbots actually this year, because these have been the main thing that have been in the news, and not just the medical news, but mainstream news as well, in regards to how they're, supporting people who are grieving, but also helping us chat to our recently deceased as well. So lots of good things, all bad things, depending on how the technology is used, and so lots of great things out there. I'm specifically talking about AI chatbots that replicate the dead and provide grief support. Rise of the grief bot in the Silicon Valley of the digital afterlife. It's a little bit Hollywood, but, that's what I am. But when my mother was given a few weeks to live, desperation came over me to photograph and video her likeness and capture her essence. That special something that is unique to her. As a photographer and documentary filmmaker, the technique and implications of that technique of documenting a subject are part intuition, part experience, part practical theory. The latter requires the logical mind. But capturing my mother's essence was a struggle, because I was documenting with the heart and with the thoughts of losing her forever. She was also in the latter stages of dementia, and I didn't want to document that part of her life. I didn't want that to be what we remember her by. No one wants that when a loved one is dying. We don't want to, remember them having a stroke or the heart attack or dying of cancer, and that image of them in hospital struggling. No one wants that, but so many of us have to go through that, don't we? My mother recognised me as someone who cared for her, and she was mostly gracious to me. Her beautiful smile and cheeky expression were essences that dementia would never take away from her. And this is where my PhD interrupts. 10 years ago, this might have been a PhD about the essence of portrait photography in the 19th and 20th century. But here we are in the middle of a new technological revolution that can perhaps take us one step further to our deceased loved ones that still photographs and videos ever could. We now have the capability to recreate our deceased with artificial intelligence. Generative AI can recreate the digital likeness and speech of a person. For the first time in humanity, our deceased can communicate with us via a chatbot, or grief bot, or death bot, or animated avatar. Of course, it's all trickery and wishful thinking, because the dead are dead. AI technology recreates traces of our past loved ones and fools us into thinking that it's a real conversation. Yet we want to be fooled. Anyone who has recently been bereaved knows that grief is raw and desperate, that we would make a deal with the devil to bring back to life our precious loved ones. And this is where the commercial death tech companies feed from our desperation to maintain continuing bonds, to soothe grief, to remember the dearly departed. In this respect, AI death tech companies are no different from the commercial endeavours of 19th century portrait photographers selling post-mortem or spirit photographs of the dead to anyone who would pay for them. However gimmicky it is, there will always be consumers who either love or hate communicating with a replica of the deceased loved ones. Only last week it was announced that a new film about Edith Piaf is in the works that uses AI to recreate her voice for the voiceover of the animated film. Fans I've spoken to have not appreciated this fakery, but will still watch the film regardless. That's me included as well, because I'm a big fan, but I'm going to watch it anyway. How will talking to our dead affect our mental health? Well, in 2021, Jaswant Singh Chale told his friend that his purpose was to assassinate Her Majesty the Queen of England. The friend was an AI chatbot he named Sari, which was created on the Replica platform. And I've talked about the Replica platform before because I've used it. In fact, it's one of the first apps I did use in relation to this research that I'm doing. And I can actually remember, because this is about 2 years ago that I was using it. And I was kind of in a different state then, mental health wise, because it was still COVID, was still isolated. I was still thinking perhaps about my mum, who had just died not so long before. And, I was kind of still using these new fandangled things in kind of helping me. But, as the years have got on, time heals and all that kind of stuff, I think I can use this stuff more with my head than my heart, and have make a logical Spock-like review of all these things, which is a good thing, I think, with PhD research, right? So on Christmas Day that year, Chale scaled the perimeter of Windsor Castle armed with a crossbow and wandered the grounds before he was arrested. More than 5,000 text messages were discovered between Chale and the chatbot Sari. Some were texts encouraging Chale to act out his deed. Chale was sentenced to 9 years in prison. I think that seems a bit harsh. He's obviously had some mental health problems, but he was still sentenced to 9 years in prison. I guess, well, because it's the Queen, right? But, he will be out in half that time, of course. Eric Schweitz-Giebel is a professor of philosophy at the University of California, Riverside, and is concerned that advances in AI technology would make it more difficult to distinguish between who was real or an AI replica, specifically during vulnerable times in our lives like bereavement, which can affect our mental health. He said, if we want, we can draw on text and image and video databases to recreate a simulacra of the deceased, simulacra that speaks similarity or to how they actually spoke, employing characteristics, ideas, and turns of phrase with voice and video to match. With significant technological advances, it might become challenging to reliably distinguish simulacra from the originals based on text, audio, and video alone. So when does grief become a mental health issue? The loss of a close family member or friend can cause prolonged grief disorder. If the circumstances are right, prolonged grief can be debilitating or life-threatening. During COVID-19, those already living alone became more isolated and withdrawn. Working from home became the norm, and not just for digital nomads like myself. Schools were closed and suddenly whole families were trapped at home and going out of their minds. Mental health has become a buzzword, and rightly so. People of all ages should feel empowered and get the support they need for their fragile minds. But this has caused a mental health crisis which is stretching mental health services. A study published by the Amiga Journal of Death and Dying found that continuing bonds between the living and the deceased are prevalent in 30 to 40% of people. I'm one of them. There are photographs of the deceased parents on the walls and side tables of my living room and hallway. There isn't a day I don't look at these images, and every week I say something to them or repeat an unspoken wish that they were still around. And this is the problem, see, because this kind of got worse during COVID, because all I had was myself and my cats, and I could go weeks, months even, not talking to anybody, and so you've got time to dwell. Your mind goes crazy. Dwell. And it's just too much, there is a time. I used to think, well, if I don't have these images around, if I'm not thinking about my dead parents, then I'm not honouring them, or I'm forgetting at them, and that's not, that's disrespectful. And of course, that's not true at all. Of course, you can remember your parents and, honour their life that they gave you, etc. But still get on with your life. Rise of the grief bot. Grief tech is changing the way we communicate with our deceased loved ones and how we cope with their passing. Our digital footprints, such as text, photos, videos, emails, and social media accounts, keep us connected to the people close to us and across social media accounts and across the world. AI voice cloning creates digital replicas of a human voice by analysing and mimicking speech patterns, such as accent, tone, and pitch. One of the biggest influences in the implementation of AI to assist humans in professional fields like therapy has been the language model Chatbot. ChatGPT, developed by OpenAI, is a prominent example and is used for a number of human needs, such as creating outlines, collaborating on content, writing robotic essays, and supporting mental health. AI industry growth exceeded $40 billion in the US in 2022 and is estimated to reach $1.3 trillion over the next decade. According to a recent report, the chatbots for mental health and therapy market will be worth $1.71 billion by 2031. These offer support, direction, assistance for mental health issues, including grief. One of the major health issues is the increasing frequency of mental disease. It is estimated that 1 in 4 adults and 1 in 10 children experience mental health issues on a yearly basis. Known players in the mental health and therapy chatbot market are Wobot Health, Weiser, MindStrong Health, and Marigold Health, and scores of others, which I guess over the course of a few years will fail, do well, and evolve with new technology. Tess is a mental health chatbot that, according to the website, is like a therapist or a coach. It can cheer you up when you're down, treat anxiety, and provide a number of tools and exercises to support positive mental health. The bot works on emotional algorithms and machine learning to respond to users. Tess uses, and I quote, adaptive machine learning technology to respond and interact with the patient. Tess is just one of the many robot therapists that are being put to work on an overstretched health service and is used in conjunction with traditional human therapy. The positives for mental health chatbots are that they don't cost anything and that they are more accessible to people who are unsure about sharing personal problems with a stranger. Traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, or talking therapy is ideally suited to chatbots that are available 24/7 and don't judge. According to a 2021 national survey by Wobot Health, 22% of adults had used a mental health chatbot. Barriers to mental health care are largely economic, and AI chatbots may reduce the need for human therapists, as well as create a wealth and health divide where those from underprivileged backgrounds will have little human support. AI technology is changing so fast research can't keep up with it. Today, there are still only small study samples for researchers and medical professionals to make decisions on. These small studies also mean there are still biases in AI data. In the mental health field, natural language tracking has been found to be accurate and at detecting and classifying different mental health problems like grief, depression, and anxiety. After the COVID-19 pandemic caused a global mental health crisis, chatbots could fill the demand for limited resources and mental health support. ChatGPT and other large language models could create a more realistic chatbot of a dead person, but doing so could be another headache in estate planning. When someone dies, their belongings are shared between the family left behind or given away to charity. It's been 5 years since my mother died, and I'm still going through both my parents' belongings and scanning photographs along the way. It's taken a long time because of bereavement. Whenever I notice feelings of grief while opening a black bin bag full of the memories of my childhood, the photographs and letters belonging to my parents, the bag closes once again, and another year goes by. Death technologies such as AI videos or bots created from traces of our loved ones have to be created by the soon-to-be departed or those left behind, and for some commercial enterprises, there's a monthly fee to store these visual or audio interactive ghosts of our dead. Many of these companies will fail or the technology will become obsolete. Imagine having to transfer all your loved ones' memories from the future equivalent of a tape recorder to a CD. Silicon Valley of the digital afterlife. Hollywood and Silicon Valley are often at the forefront of cutting-edge technology. Remember when Carrie Fisher was digitally resurrected for Star Wars after her untimely death in 2016? No one at that time was discussing it as a death tech for the masses. Since last year, a number of AI death tech companies have hit the market, many promising to recreate the essence of our deceased loved ones. California-based grief tech startups like Storyfile, Replica, Hereafter AI provide a number of services that aim to support people with the loss of a loved one. Storyfile introduced interactive video conversations with the deceased. Replica is a companion and supportive chatbot avatar that evokes the more users text it. It is a growing worldwide AI death tech niche that uses deep learning and large language models to recreate the likeness, speech, and personality of the dead. Conversational AI chatbots help machines interact with humans. Generative AI creates new content using machine learning algorithms and trained data to create videos, animated photographs, speech, and text. Grief tech platforms offer a hierarchy of subscriptions, which can come at a hefty price. This might explain why my free subscription to Storyfile looked like a video nasty from the 1980s and nothing like the William Shatner promotion on their website. The one-time premium offering fee is $499 per year, one time, which gives access to a higher resolution and longer running time videos of the deceased. I didn't pay the $500, obviously. I did the free one. And even though I had lighting on me and stuff, it still looked pretty rough, I have to say. But Science AI is a platform that allows users to create online conversations with the deceased, and according to the founder, Jaron Brox, it's a service that provides closure for the bereaved and is not intended as a long-term continuing bonds platform. Univirtual's promise is to never say goodbye to our deceased loved ones. Its founder, Justin Harrison, makes the fantastical proposition to eliminate grief entirely. At the same time, the platform's website states that it aims to reproduce, and I quote, the authentic essence of our deceased loved ones. If essence is related to identity and therefore what it means to be human, eliminating grief does not make us human. Confused? Yeah, maybe. Many of these commercial enterprises use the term essence. They insist that the technology can create the essence of the deceased. This is where my PhD butts in once again. In my PhD research, I am investigating if AI technology can recreate the essence of a person in the same way or better than a photographic portrait. Essence is a term used by portrait painters and then by portrait photographers from the 19th century to this day. The portrait photographer aims to capture something that represents who the sitter really is. A professional portrait is a performance, and capturing the aura of an individual is a setup, a mask. Essence is therefore better suited to describe our loved ones, and capturing this is in photography is a ritual that is practiced 1 billion times over. Commercial companies can brag about AI technology replicating the essence of our loved ones. I'm questioning their claim to find out if it stacks up. Can AI create the essence of a person better or worse than a still photograph in the context of the reproduction of the deceased and the technology's effect on the bereaved? We have to see commercial grief tech companies for what they were. Customers could be fooled into thinking that they're providing a personal service at a traumatic time in their lives. Stop. They are a commercial enterprise. They exist to make money from our needs. I'm not saying that all grief tech companies are evil and are solely making money from our grief. They are providing a service that we, the customer or consumer, have demanded, and like photography, we'll use it to stay connected to our dead. The technology is new, and the relationship with it and its effect of the bereaved is still in research. There are ongoing legal and ethical concerns surrounding grief tech in relation to consent and data privacy, psychological dependencies, biases in data sets, economic access, and technological obsolescence affecting access. Post-mortem deepfakes and deepfake porn are created faster than legislation can attempt to shut them down. New York has mandated regulations for post-mortem publicity rights, which are restricted to celebrities. Technology experts are pushing for a do not bot me clause in estate planning. Some states like California and Connecticut have passed data protection policies protecting collection user data by corporations and institutions. The European Union has gone one step further with its General Data Protection Regulation, which could have implications for death and grief tech services. From Silicon Valley to China. China's AI industry is rapidly advancing, and there are a number of companies creating grief bots. Superbrain is designed for the bereaved. Services include video and audio clips of conversational video-enabled chatbots that mimic the deceased. And they aren't cheap. Customized grief bots can cost between $6,860 to $13,710. So, that's obviously more expensive than Storyfile. Nanjing Silicon Intelligence has access to Huawei's Pangu large language model and aims to pair digital avatars with LLM datasets to enable digital immortality as entertainment. co-founder of the NSI, Sun Kei, created a video-enabled chatbot platform for the bereaved to communicate with their lost loved ones. China's AI regulations have specific rules for deepfakes and require the person whose personal information is being used to recreate the deepfake to be notified and give consent, and how this is regulated is not certain. To address these concerns, the UNICEF East Asia and Pacific region has compiled a Safer Chatbots implementation guide for the region, which has experienced a substantial uptake in chatbots as substitutes for mental health care practices. North America is dominating the mental health chatbot market and therapy sector, with wellness initiatives addressing gaps in the mental health care system. Ray Kurzweil edges further to singularity. The future of griefbot technology is being pioneered by futurists and inventor Ray Kurzweil, who predicted that people would be able to connect their brains to machines known as singularity by 2045, which is not that far off. He lost his father when he was 22 and is creating a replicant of his late father by feeding an AI system with letters, essays, and musical compositions. More ambitious plans include using nanotechnology and DNA from his father's bones. Of course, Kurzweil will have to dig the bones up first, which seems like a lot of effort. The dad bot would be able to converse with Kurzweil about his work. Writing from personal experience, I think this moving is dangerously close to prolonged grief. If we are forever stuck in our deceased loved ones' past lives, how we live and enjoy our lives. I mean, the greatest upheaval to my life ever was my dad dying when I was 29. I never got over it. I did a lot of stupid things when he did die. I fell apart. In fact, I probably wouldn't have lived in another country if my dad hadn't died. A lot of things would have happened if he hadn't have died, and I still didn't deal with it. I never cried. I was in shock. How he died, thinking about how he died, seeing him in the hospital, really was something that I never got over as well. And even to this day, I find it, really hard to come to terms with. And we're talking about more than 20 years later, so, but I know he's gone, he's gone. So this digging up his bones and, trying to bring him back alive, it's, he's not coming back. Mr. Kurzweil, your dad is not coming back. Please move on. Amit Roy Chowdhury, professor of computer engineering at the University of California, Riverside, doesn't think we are close to recreating AI replicas of the dead that could fool the living. He says all artificial intelligence uses algorithms that need to be trained on large data sets. If you have a lot of text or voice recordings from a person to train the algorithms, it's very doable to create a chatbot that responds similarly to the real person. The challenges arise, though, in unstructured environments where the program has to respond to situations it hasn't encountered before. Many of these AI systems are essentially just memorizing routines. They are not getting a semantic understanding that would allow them to generate entirely novel yet reasonable responses. But he also says that in the future we will be able to probably, he uses the word probably, but able to design AI that responds to a human-like way to new situations. But we don't know how long it will take. These debates are happening now in the AI community. There are some who think it will take 50 plus years, and others think we are closer. And I can't help but thinking that you're spending all this time trying to bring people back to life, or living on the, we all do it. We live online 24/7, and we're not actually living our day-to-day lives in the world, in the earth. The earth is a beautiful, beautiful place. If you're lucky to live near the ocean, if you're lucky to live near woods, and it is a beautiful place, and, we're missing it every day because we're stuck on our computers, or we're trying to, bring back the dead. We're all doing it, but it's a human trait. However long the humans have been on this planet, the fact that we are going to die is something that we cannot accept, can we? We just cannot accept it. And maybe they should design a chatbot to help us with that, to tell us that, look, you might be on this earth maybe 80 years if you're lucky. You are going to die. Accept it. Live a really good, happy, full life if you can, but live it. You're not going to live forever. It's not going to happen, okay? So this yearning and aching we feel when someone close to us dies can be crippling. Isn't it a kind of madness to dig up graves, to harvest DNA, to recreate our deceased, which Kurzweil is suggesting? All that time and energy when we have so little time on this earth. When will we say enough is enough? They lived and they died, and I want to live. I mean, as you've probably, got from some of my writings and some of my podcasts, I'm on like one. Yes, I'm positive about the technology and also negative about the technology. I think it's like a diet. Too much of one thing is bad for you. It's all in moderation. Please use a mental health chatbot if you need to chat to somebody. That's fine. Please use some kind of form of AI if you're grieving and if you need that, help with that bereavement, because let's face it, no one can afford therapy every day, right? So use it, but don't get stuck in it. If you're still using it after, on your third year and you're not accepting it, there's a problem, right?